guest today is Märten Mõttus, the visionary CTO and founder of Trackdeep, a pioneering company in drone detection technology. Beyond his professional achievements, Märten is an avid athlete, participating in various endurance events such as marathons and triathlons. His dedication to both technological innovation and personal excellence exemplifies the spirit of Tallinn's vibrant innovation ecosystem. My first question goes a little bit to the beginning. Can you share the story behind Trackdeep, or when did you first realize that drone detection is the future?
It's not as much as it's the future. At first, there was no vision. There was a practical need. Andy approached me at the end of 2019, I think, with a real problem because his company had installed a drone detection system in Tallinn prison, which was not working really well. And there were various problems with sensors, software, platform maintenance. And so he approached me and said, Märten, can you do something about it? I think I gave the answer in about 4 seconds because I've done a lot of software projects, but this was a really interesting one because it involved real hardware, real radar systems, integrations, something that every engineer is really excited about. And so we went to Tallinn prison, mapped the whole problem, so to say, and I created a solution which is still in use there today. There are a lot of problems with this project, mainly because it's something we took over from someone else, but this was the basis of Trackdeep, because we did the software and then there arose a need to create a company, because you have to be a juridical person just to do something in Estonia, but it's not really hard. And then we started working towards some grants. We got first grant from Estonian Ministry of Defense, I believe, just to develop the software further. And this was the start. At 2021, the European Commission, then the use-based regulations were came out, and we thought this would be this was the beginning where we started to see, drone are the future, because drone flights and manned aircraft, they have to work together in a nice way so that there wouldn't be any accidents. Everybody knew where each this aircraft is. And that is something that is our goal and vision, just to see drones everywhere.
It's really fascinating. Can we perhaps dive into the Tallinn's prison case? So you said you took it over from a company or from a solution or an existing technology there that was not working well enough?
Yeah.
But what's the story behind Tallinn's prison? Do you have any interesting insights, perhaps? What made them develop it in the first place?
Unfortunately, no, not really. Because like I said, my journey in this project started with technological development. Before that, the insights. I know this much, it was supposed to be like a prototype. Tallinn prison itself, it's in such a wonderful location where it's really hard to fly in with a drone because it's covered with planes. There's nothing around it. If you look with binoculars from the window, you can see like everywhere, like 3 kilometers radius. And it's like a really good case and really bad case, because there are no real challenges in the drone detection area, but there are also no real threats. So far as I know, there have not been a single registered case in a malicious drone flight in the area. There have been tests and regular flights, and some things that we see that are really far away in Lasnamäe or in Viimsi or in town center, but that's not really the case. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you. It was a prototype. It was maybe something they wanted to try or be the first ones to have this kind of a system.
But you need people like this, right? You need people who are willing to take that leap, even though they see the potential risk. The risk might not be there yet, right?
True.
But the potential is there still.
It is. The drone industry is growing really fast. And I think that's my personal opinion, but it's something similar to the beginning of internet. Because when internet just rose, people thought, who needs it? Like, why? It's just pointless. I just call someone if I need to speak to them, or send a mail or whatever. Now the transportation and all these automated tasks are moving to drones, and still people think, why? I just drive a car there and just send people there. But I think the future is much more elegant.
Mm-hmm. And drones, they have evolved quite significantly as well over the years.
Yes, they have. I mean, the cameras have become much better. The flight radios has come better. The drones have become smarter by themselves. They can detect collisions overall the technological leap. It has not been such a huge leap that we now find something that the drone flies without sound or something like this. But the technology has become progressively better. Yes, and so drones now see further. Fly further, and they don't need as much human interaction anymore. They can do operations automatically or semi-automatically. So, yeah.
When you look the advancement of drones throughout the years, how does that translate to drone detection technology? As you mentioned as well, drones are getting faster. They can fly further. Higher. They're getting smaller.
Yes, and they don't need human interaction anymore.
What does that mean exactly? What do you mean?
It means like you program the drone to fly a predetermined path, for example. And if you cover the drone with anti-radar coating, and the drone doesn't send out any radio transmissions, so essentially this drone is invisible to any radio signal detection systems. And you can fly undetected, especially when you do it in the night. There are, of course, ways like someone looking at it. You have optical ways. You can't mask it this well enough that you couldn't see with the naked eye. But for radio signals, it's possible for the drone to be relatively invisible.
What can we do about this? I mean, this seems to be pretty scary. I mean, and the data kind of suggests that there are cases happening over cities, over countries.
Yes, even in Tallinn, really interesting stuff happens.
Really, we can actually dive into Tallinn now as well.
We could.
Yeah, tell me more about what do you know?
It started in, I think it was last year, springtime. Well, this Tallinn Innovation started, and we participated with a notion that we would like to cover the Tallinn with drone detection sensors and just look what kind of a sensor network is needed to detect drones most of the best way. And we installed at some point, there were like 5 sensors in Tallinn covering, I would say, most of Tallinn. Just Nõmme and Kristiine side was not covered well. And we detected a lot of flights, approximately 700 flights per month. And I would say roughly 1/3 of them was in violation of all the requirements that needed to be there. That's, of course, a little bit of a jump because they might have had special permits to fly as high as they did. But there were a couple of notorious cases next to the Tallinn airport where drones were flying 500 or 600 meters high at the same, like maybe 150 meters from the airport at the same time as the plane was landing. So that was something that, okay. And when we asked about the Estonian Air Navigation Services, they knew nothing about it. Transportation Service knew nothing about it. And that is exactly because it has not been, drones are something that are in the back of the minds that are not in the real world currently for people. We showed these cases to transportation agents also. It might be that the permits were correct and they had the right to fly there. But for us, for our systems, it triggered an alarm because there's something, you should fly in this proximity, 30 meters high maximum. And in this specific spot, you couldn't fly at all without special permits. So, yeah, there have been a couple of flights like this. And most likely, they are just regular people doing test flights or whatever. But, you never know.
But why do you think that happens? Is it because the the sufficient amount of drones throughout the city has grown exponentially? Or is it a lack of detection devices? I mean, which one is it? Do we need to catch up with detection devices, or should we somehow decrease the number of drones, especially in these kinds of sensitive areas?
I think the latter is impossible because when you look around, the drone sales really progressively go higher. I think the number of drones in the city spaces is just growing. So yeah, like I would say enforcement of regulations. We need to detect those, and we need to match a drone to a physical person. Otherwise, you have nothing to put it against. I mean, like there is a drone, yes, but now who flies it?
Yeah,
and you have no ways to punish this person. So I would say every city in the future needs some kind of a drone dome or coverage of drone detection, which is currently in progress in Tallinn. We plan to put the sensors back in springtime now, so we would have full coverage in Tallinn. Again, this is because it also provides a really cool insight. There is a lot of data, and you can take. You mean like you can aggregate the data in different ways. And for example, we found out that the people's favorite time to fly is Thursdays and Fridays between 5 and 6. Which
How come?
I don't know what's the reason. This is something you can think of yourself, but that is what the data showed us. The most flights happen this time. A lot of flights actually are near construction sites. I think this is construction companies. A lot of flights are near or over Old Town, and these are these images you see in Aktuaalne Kaamera in the evening. These nice drone pane views. Because I look at this like, I know this flight because I looked at it during the day. Currently, the flights are mostly ceased because of the weather, probably. We haven't had a single detection last week. It makes sense. Nobody wants to fly in this weather, and yeah. So there is a lot of things going on in Tallinn City.
But can you walk us through a bit on the core technology side? I mean, what is required from the city or from, let's say, an interested party who wishes to detect drones? I mean, what's the core technology that one should consider? And can you kind of tie it with something you have personally encountered, some kind of technological problem, or do you have some insights into that?
Yes. All right. Starting from this year, 1st of January, every drone flying in European needs to have this network ID switched on. This applies to all drones that are over 250 grams, which means the small toys or the small camera drones are not affected, but anything bigger has to have a beacon, so to say. They have to broadcast who they are. And this is standardized, and even we are producing sensors to read this standard information. You can install a software on your phone, and you can see the drone traffic around you if there is something. So when you ask about core technologies, it's the regulations are moving in the right direction. We are, we as a Europe is enforcing the regulations, and they are there right now, and we just need to install physical hardware to listen to the drones in the cities. It doesn't require much. Companies like ours, for example, we have our own sensors. If there is interest from the municipality or whoever, we can provide the sensor, then we can provide the software just to put the sensor on the ground, and you see the drone traffic on the map. And plus you get reports, incident reports, and flight history, and all kind of statistics you can do later with this. So the core technology behind it is simple beacons, pretty much similar to what manned air traffic is currently doing. They also have beacons that broadcast who they are and the flight, but there is a little bit different. Manned flights are really regulated. There is really high standards of what needs to be because lives are in stake. Drones, not so much. If you have a small, 500-gram drone, it doesn't pose much threat to anyone except for the operator. Maybe it can fall on someone's head. The transportation agency is currently implementing the risk assessment of Tallinn, also according to drone flights and where you can fly, what's the population density, so that if you try to do a flight that is legal in any way. You just need to move away from dense populated areas or open areas. So there is a lot of regulations and legislation involved, which is actually the biggest biggest stop on this. Technologically, we're all ready. I mean, like you take a drone, you fly, and we can see it. And the legislation is something different. Everything has to be by the book. Nobody should get hurt. There are a lot of ways to do it. You couldn't be in an accident. Someone might think you are invading the privacy. There are a lot of cases that doesn't touch the technological side, but the legislation side.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was wondering about the big picture as well, because I remember when I was a little kid and looking back at that time as well, we were being sold a future where cars are going to be flying, pizzas will be delivered via drones, etc. I'm looking at the streets today. I can't see it. But my question perhaps is the big picture still there?
I think it's there. It's just a little bit more complicated. Actually, this tied into the comfort of people also. You talked about delivering a pizza. This can be technologically done, but it's much easier for you to take this Wolt or Bolt app, order your pizza. You don't even have to change your clothes. You can be in your morning robe, go to the door and get your pizza from the courier. Whether we're talking about the drone, you have to dress up, you have to go outside for the drone. It's much more uncomfortable. So there are some services that are still, you might get the pizza faster, but you have to go somewhere to pick it up. It's not the same. As for flying cars, did you know that in Paris Olympics, there was supposed to be a flying drone taking people from the airport to the town center? And they had all technological things ready. They had the drones ready, the pilots ready. It was semi-autonomous, which means the drone flies by itself, but the pilot was sitting in there. But it didn't happen because of legislation. Mm. It's the same. The technology is there, but it's just that people's acceptance is moving much slower than anticipated. There was even a study done that about the drone sound. And since this sound is so unnatural, this whining, people find it scary and they don't like it, which means drones automatically, they don't like drones also because of the sound. Again, really interesting problems that you wouldn't think of because flying cars are cool and everything. But I think the technology is there. It's moving in the right direction. It's just a society that needs to catch up.
Mm-hmm. So these kinds of let's say things that prevent it from being a normal life. The sound is quite annoying. It's probably expensive as well. True. I imagine an air taxi flying that would still be pretty much still more expensive than just getting a taxi, right?
Of course.
Even though Paris taxis are pretty expensive.
But the price was also said is 110 euros per flight.
Okay, for 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers?
No, it's something like this. It's a lot of money, but it's cool.
It is a lot of money. Yeah. It is a lot of money. But these kinds of, let's say, legislative hurdles, they might oppose some, let's say, opportunities as well.
Yes. There are even Estonian law firms have dedicated people for drone laws. Mm-hmm. That what you have to take into account and how to enforce this, and how to support the companies who want to fly the drones, how to support the companies who want to process the information sent out by drones. So, like you said, opportunities. If there is something new coming, you have to support it in any way you can. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And drones are just one, let's say, integrated part in the future of, let's say, an utopian city space, right?
Yeah.
We see tons of new technology emerging. Drones are, they're very good at getting stuff into the air at in the future terms in very cheap costs, right? You can get cameras, you can get cameras on the ground, you can get cameras into the air, you can get people on the ground, you can get people on the air. So it's like putting a third dimension into our 2D city space, right?
Yes. Currently, the main use case is not cities, but rural areas. Mm. There is a drone company called Zipline who works in Africa mostly, and they send medication, food supplies, and this really important goods to remote areas by drone. And the process is like the drone makes a flight of 400 kilometers, and some areas which are impossible to get to at some time of year, they just drop the package with a parachute and with medication and stuff, so the village or a small town in there can get the important things. So this is also a use case. It's much better suited because it has higher social impact. People look at it like, wow, it's much more important than just, I don't know, driving a rich person from airport to the city center. Yeah,
there's definitely. I remember one. I think it was Bill Hicks' joke about flying or solving world hunger via rockets or something like this. But it definitely ties into that. But there's tons of ecosystem players in having drones as a normal part of life. So what have you seen has been the biggest challenges in integrating drone detection, especially detection systems, into existing infrastructure, perhaps, as you mentioned, airports, prisons, and we did in collaboration government buildings, right?
Again, I would have to say it's the actual need. Everybody understands that there is drone threat. However, it's such minuscule thing that they don't act on it because it's not needed. Like I said, it's when it comes fast, and then these companies are in trouble. But the biggest hurdle, technologically we're there. It's just that people are just skeptic about it. Mm-hmm. Like, why would I need a drone detection system? That's the first question. There are cases of which you can then provide. Even in Paldiski, there is a big area where there's used new cars are arriving by ferries, and they had a problem that someone is throwing rocks inside the perimeter and wrecking the paint. This can easily be solved again with the drone detection system. There are I don't know, remember what's the exact use case was. But it's or there are being quite a lot of cases delivering drugs into prisons with drones. Yeah, but again, if you have 5,000 deliveries of drugs into the prison and 2 of them are with drones, of course you put your budget where increasing the teams around the prisons, not try to prevent something that flies in. And of course, regular drone detection systems are quite expensive. Drone radars that can detect anything flying in, they are up to 2 million euros per piece, and they sometimes don't even cover the whole 360 degrees, but only a sector. So you need 3 of them to cover the whole area. So it's quite a big investment. And traditionally, these drone detection systems are expensive. Mm-hmm. There are ways, for example, Ukraine has developed a quite relatively cheap way to do it, because if traditional, I'm saying traditional in the sense of that someone who has produced drone detection system for a while, they made an audio sensor that listens to drone sounds. They can offer up to 25,000 euros per sensor. And Ukraine did it with mobile phones and microphones, less than 100 euros per piece. And they covered a huge area with this. And currently they're using it to detection this malicious drones. It's a collision of what could be done really fast and easy. And then there is this old business that says that, no, it has to be done properly, but it's expensive. So either way is right. You just put a lot of cheap sensors or a couple of really expensive sensors. So the price is also really a good factor, a big factor, because it is expensive to listen to drones.
It's very, very cool. I didn't know that they're detecting it via sound, but that proposes great opportunities, right? And how do you evaluate today's in an economical perspective, right? You're a private company, you're here to make a profit. In a drone detection scheme, I understand that real life scenarios, as you mentioned in the Ukraine, and that's let's say that's a very real life scenario there. Usually then the changes happen, right? the technology gets cheaper, people tend to get more cost-effective, more smart, and they also, I've heard, started to build their own drone. First of all, manufacturing. I just learned that they're detecting the drones themselves now. How do you translate this to an Estonian ecosystem? Are we thinking enough about these kinds of things? Are our technological and manufacturing capabilities there? Do we even want to get there?
A number of Estonian companies are active in Ukraine currently, in the various, both in the way that they produce drones and they produce drone detection systems. Regarding to are we doing enough, I don't think so. It's a matter of what you think will happen when we are considering the war or the possibility of a future war. Then most of it has switched to drones. It was this regular war that was happening before Ukraine is like somehow discarded, and now most of the attacks are done really remotely with drones. And when you think about it into the same system in Estonia, yeah, we should put much more emphasis on drone detection systems, especially in the border area, and drone mitigation systems also, like how to, when you find a drone, great, what are you going to do about it? It's just something like this, because drones are notoriously hard to catch. The drone is small, it's maybe like a couple of 20, 30 centimeters across, and just to try to shoot it down from really high, it's relatively impossible. There are ways, the net guns, and there are jamming, but a lot of companies have now evolved the system that is anti-jamming. You can't do anything. It's just regular jamming doesn't work. The drone starts controlling its flight by itself internally, so the jamming doesn't help. The jamming only suppresses the connection between the operator and the drone. But if the drone already knows that I want to fly there, the jamming doesn't do anything. So there is also one way what you could do when we're considering regular drones where you fly with a remote is you get the pilot. If you get the pilot, you get the drone. That is also something we are researching currently. It's a way to detect the pilot's location based on where and how the drone is flying. This is something we have been doing for more than a year already, and we have quite interesting results. Currently, it's mostly done with electronic means because the drone and the drone remote and the drone itself, they are sending information to each other, which means the pilot's location is also there. Plus the pilot, if they are sending radio signals, it's possible to detect. In war cases or in Ukraine, this signal jamming or signal technology has really improved a lot. So it's really difficult to understand from this mess of signals where the operator or the pilot is. But there are ways. It's something that a lot of drone companies, both in Estonia and everywhere else, they are researching. And Ukraine is like a big test ground for all kinds of technologies.
That's very interesting because it kind of works in a way where everyone plays by the rules, right? It works when the drones have an RFID sensor. It works when the pilots tell where they are and who they are and why are they flying, etc. Then we can detect it, and then we can do XYZ activities with them and ensure everything is done in a correct way.
Yes.
But this is where, let's say, the imagination starts to wonder is what if someone doesn't play by the rules? What if the drones get autonomous, etc. Yeah. But let's get back to the Tallinn's, let's say, ecosystem side a bit, and tell me about European Union a bit. I've heard that by 2030, every city with at least 100,000 citizens has to have a use space.
No, they have to have a risk assessment of building a use space.
Risk assessment of building a use space, but not a use space in an operational way.
I wish I had the memory of one of my employees regarding to all the laws.
Got it.
But there has to be, I wanted to look it up in the morning, but I forgot because it was every member state of European Union has to have one active use space by 2030. It was like this. So which the use space doesn't have to be big. I think there are no limits on this. Tartu is currently building a use space sandbox, which pretty much would cover it for Estonia. And Tallinn doesn't have something like this, but it's true. They are forcing flights into U-space, and I understand why, because it's regulated and it's safe. That, of course, takes away all the other flights. It makes this whole process much more complicated, but also much more safe. But like I said, there is a legislation. Technologically, we are much more ready than the regulations allow. It's just...
Could you tell me, and then the people watching and listening as well, what is U-space? Because I've been to drone seminars too. People
U-space, you can describe it a lot of different ways. But I was thinking about it. It's the easiest way to explain it is like used space or united airspace is airspace where manned and unmanned flying devices can exist together in a safe way, which means all the manned traffic knows where all the unmanned traffic is, and all the drone operators know where the manned traffic is. So the risks are minimum. And we have regulation for everything. When a crash happens, then what? We can fly on some path, but we can't fly on other paths. So U-space actually defines a geographical area where it is safe for manned and unmanned aircraft to work together. That's I think the simplest explanation of it.
And who do you see as the governing body of U-space?
By definition, U-space can be created by anyone who wishes to. For example, Holland is really far away, like when it comes to legislation and like real use cases. And for example, one of their use spaces will be Rotterdam harbor area, which is the biggest harbor in the world. And there are thousands of drone flights per day already flying. So there are a lot of companies with 30, 40 operators who are flying their drones on a daily basis, regulated manner. And this is like a really good example for the U-spaces, because Holland is really densely populated. There is air traffic, there is military air traffic, plus there is a huge area with a lot of drones flying. So if you like apply this U-space umbrella onto this location, then it's transparent. Aircrafts passing through know that they can be there, it's safe. And when you have a drone flight permit, you know it's safe because there are nothing. Other drones are not colliding with the path, the planes are high above or none of at all. So this U-space area is like a bubble that works nicely with all kinds of air traffic. And
the use cases are there as well, right?
Exactly.
That's usually how it happens. The use cases are there. People start flying for whatever reason.
Yes.
And then the use space comes as a second logical step to...
Exactly, because you have to have regulations. If there are two drone flights competing on the same spot, for example, you have to give priority to one of them. So somebody, for example, wants to take a nice picture of a building, but at the same time, there is a drone delivering a heart to another hospital. In this case, if there wouldn't be any regulations, what would you do? Would have a really big issue. In U-space, this is regulated. This higher priority flights gets permission first, and this someone who's doing the photography, they are forced to land or go away for a while. It's something that, you have use cases, you have time slots, you have operators. Also, a big bonus for this is like all the flights have been registered. And if there is some kind of a problem, you later can track it down to one person and you can take legitimate action.
When everyone's playing by the rules again and
Exactly.
identifies themselves, right? They have to kind of participate
in that. The U-space has a requirement of, you have to have like 6 parts working there. And one of them is catching all traffic within U-space. That also means illegal flights or flights that are not registered. You should see all the flying objects. That also poses some really weird problems. For example, birds. We can't permit the birds to fly, but they are there and they can affect the operations. But that is something that you can't cover with this. But overall, it's you have an operation, but it needs to be safe and it needs to be prioritized. Also, when something happens, and I don't know, there is a plane coming down on an emergency path, it needs to be clear. That's why you need to know where all the operators are. You can let them know, please land or we will take you down. And they're never going to move out of the way. That is what the use space regulations give. It's quite a handy document. It describes really well what should happen inside the use space. However, not all the things have been worked out in detail yet. All the standards are not there yet. It's work in progress. It should be applied already for 2 years, but it's still work is ongoing. And like I said, Holland is much further than Estonia or close. Close.
And in Tallinn, we, together with you, we tested some equipment. We have done our baby steps. We tested the radar and we tested the RFID sensors. Can you tell me, and the people listening and watching as well, perhaps some interesting insights? We have talked about use cases, right? Without use cases, there's not going to be a use space. Well, we probably detected numbers of drones. Like what was their use case? What were they doing?
I would say, at least in Tallinn city center, the use case is providing visual imagery for news, I would say.
For news predominantly?
Yes,
or
I would say,
use?
Because there is the same, we can also see the drones identification, and we can track it down to pretty much a couple of locations which you see in the news. There is another use case which is heavily seen is construction sites. They're already doing something around, for example, this Arter, which is built in, where is it? Juhkentali and Liivala ja Koone. When there was construction going on, there was a lot of drone activity around the area and close by. And then there is recreational flying, which people just go and fly the drone. These drone flights have a relatively specific pattern. They just go up, make a couple of circles and go down. But like I said, Tallinn itself, maybe we haven't discovered it yet. It's hard to look at the trajectories and say the use cases. These three are what I can just by heart. But as we discussed, I think before the podcast, in Vilnius's case, when they are tracking trash collection with drones. They fly the drones over the trash canisters before it is picked up and after when it's picked up. Then they compare the images, and if there is stuff left which the trash company hasn't picked up, they don't pay the bill. The same thing is with when snow comes. Drones fly over the city, map the areas, and after 6 hours, 8 hours, they fly again and see who has cleared the snow, who hasn't, and then you can have something like this. They also, in Vilnius, look at buildings. If the building construction is not according to the plans, they get notified immediately. There are also ways to, this was a really specific use case, but outside cafeterias, they have these outside areas. They usually ask permission, can we put our outside tables and chairs on the street? What the city does, it flies over this area with drones and see if these places are according to regulations. If they occupy too much space, they get notified. And Vilnius itself also said that they do not do it to punish people. They just do it to bring awareness. And this is, I think, it's a really excellent example of what you could do with drones. All these tedious, repetitive tasks that could be done by machines automatically are done now by drones, thus saving a lot of hours. Because drones are really fast. It doesn't matter what kind of a traffic there is in the city. It doesn't matter, well, weather matters a little bit, but most of the weather, whether it's raining or it's sunny, the drones can fly up and be back in half an hour. And all this, you can already see whether the rules have been followed or not. So that is something that I think Tallinn is also should be aspired to, because it's really, it saves a lot of time.
So everything you just mentioned were I would translate this under an umbrella of operational efficiency.
Exactly.
City needs to operate efficiently. This is the citizens' will as well, so that their taxpayers' money will be used in an efficient way, as efficient as possible. But in terms of Vilnius, I'm listening to you and I'm wondering, are we living in a kind of parallel reality in some cases? for some reason, mostly GDPR, these things they haven't found traction in Tallinn yet. So but it's definitely worth looking into. Just
yes,
putting that out there for the record. Let's talk about electromagnetic sources.
Mm-hmm.
How can that be a risk when coming to drones, especially in drone detections? Has it been a challenge for you guys, or do you see this more as an opportunity?
It is both. As we have seen when we did this Tallinn Innovation Project, city center, in the city, there is so much electronic interference, especially on this the same frequency that drones broadcast their data, that it's if you could walk on it, you could go over the city really easily. It's the sensors to detect drones outside the city, the range is up to 30 kilometers. You can really see far away, but you go inside the city, even if you're on a really good spot, like in top of Maakri Kvartal, you could see barely a kilometer. So it interferes a lot. Plus, there are really a lot of broadcasting antennas with strong signals that when you direct it directly to a drone detection sensor, the sensor goes blind. So you need to find spaces that are relatively far away from the city center, where there is not so much noise, and then you can listen further. So the most efficient way to cover a city is just don't put sensors inside the city, but put it around it.
Very cool. This is something probably would not come out otherwise, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah. But it's also, it doesn't affect radars as much. Radars are a little different technology, but because the radar frequencies are so high, there is not so many signals out there. Mm-hmm. But radars don't work. They don't see behind corners, and they don't handle reflections well. There is a drone signal can bounce off buildings. So when you have an area like town center with a lot of high buildings, it's not really useful. You have to put a lot of radars, and radars are expensive. So even the radar we used, that was about 50,000 euros with a range of a little more than 1 kilometer. So if you want to cover all the areas, it's difficult to do without a big investment. That is why also risk assessments comes to play. If we would have a good assessment of where the drones could fly in Tallinn, we could create, so to say, virtual corridors, and we could cover those, like really, like with a multi-layered approach. We could listen to radar signals, we could listen to radio frequency signals, we could listen to network IDs, we could listen to audio of drones, and we could build up a multi-layer approach. But if we're talking about the area of Tallinn, which I believe it's 200 or a little bit more kilometers, you need a lot of sensors to cover it all, and it's not financially feasible to do it.
Mm-hmm. What's the approximate number of sensors that would, let's say, adequately cover the whole Tallinn's airspace area up to, let's say, I don't know, 500 meters? Or?
When we're talking about legal drone traffic, then we could do it approximately 5 to 6 sensors, because the range is quite good. You just bring them outside of the city borders for 1 kilometer, and you can listen to it, and maybe put a couple in the center, just for backup. When we're talking about malicious drones, which do not broadcast anything, which means radars or RF sensors, then the number already goes to tens. And that is why I said it's really important to get the risk assessment, because we would actually need to know which parts we have to listen. Because to cover all these 200 square kilometers, it's already in the millions when we're talking about money. Mm-hmm. And there are, of course, radars that can cover up to 7 kilometers radius, but this cost again like 2 million euros. And you would need, let me think, approximately 15 to 18 of those to cover Tallinn. So, yeah, it's just, so your question is legal drone traffic, relatively easy. You could do it like 5, 6, maybe 7 sensors. Illegal drone traffic, we're talking about 20s, 30s, plus a lot of euros.
What's your advice to cities like Tallinn or Helsinki or Riga? Not big million citizen cities, but let's say relatively medium-sized. What should they do right now? Because we have covered the ground, basically. We understand that they are here to stay. I mean, the drones. The use cases are getting there. They usually start within the smaller areas like Rotterdam harbor area, etc. And they will most likely scale up to big city spaces. And today we're living in 2025 or 2024 at the end of 2024. So what is something that every city of Tallinn size should right now think about or do, or what's the basis that should be covered?
There is something that is required by law anyway. If you're more than 100,000 people, you have to have the risk assessment. So my suggestion would be start the risk assessment, because this will provide valuable insights of where drone operations are possible, which would again lead to what kind of operations would be possible, what could be done with these restrictions. I still have to pull this Vilnius case again. It's amazing what they can actually do if you keep an open mind. You pretty much all the regulatory or overview what you have to do inside the city, to see if someone is following the rules. Most of it you could automate by drones. And that is again something that put your heads together, think of the use cases, how you could save time, if anything would be possible, and then just bring it down to the reality level. But first of all, risk assessment, because this is something that is required, and it is something that actually prevents accidents, or at least mitigates them.
Mm-hmm. Also, what Vilnius did was the FPV drones and the FPV drone training area for the pilots. That was something that's really outside of the box thinking as well. Is that when we think about the holistic approach to defense, then seeing drone operators and FPV operators there as the essential level of holistic approach to this.
Yeah, true.
And this is really
Tartu
cool.
is also doing something like this. Tartu is having also a drone test area, sandbox. They are trying to enforce this use-based legislation on top of it, so they could create a miniature use space where everything is working as it should be. Because use space is not only regulations, it's also systems that need to work there just to provide all these 6 essential services. You pretty much have to know who is flying, when he's flying, whether he's flying correctly, and what kind of a traffic is around this area, plus weather, because some kind of weather can be harmful or risky to fly in. So what this technical services for use space provide is this just a knowledge of how to act and how to enforce the rules, because you have to know to act.
What about Trackdeep? What's the future of Trackdeep?
One of the main goals is to become a USSP or use space service provider, which means we would like to build and manage this technical side of a use space. The good thing is, since it's all standardized, we could take our knowledge and our technology and move to any use space that is created in Europe. So I would say our future is being a use space service provider.
How's that working out so far?
It's great. I have to say it's the best time of my life. It's technologically really challenging. And everything we do regarding drone detection and talks with air navigation systems, we took our system prototype to them, for example, and they shoot it so full of holes that we scrapped almost everything, went back to the drawing board and did something much better. So it's always collaborate, because you don't know everything. You could get much better. And this is something how we learn. Again, the Stalin Prison project, really a lot of problems. Excellent way to learn. Everything comes out much better. And these small things or different projects, they bind all together into this, what we need to create use space infrastructure. That is, I would say Trackdeep's future. This also includes the sensor coverage of cities, which is again what we do together with Tallinn, and it's also excellent knowledge, which provides also not only the technical ways to how to build up the sensor network, but also statistics of how people actually are flying the drones currently and what is happening in the city. It's also something we can use. So all these side projects all come together into a knowledge how to build a functional use-based infrastructure.
So for my last question, perhaps if you could think hypothetically and really outside of the box. If you had unlimited resources, if Trackdeep had unlimited resources, let's say that, what project would you pursue in drone detection?
My personal favorite, of course, is the drone pilot detection. It's a really hard problem. It's really interesting, and it's highly technical. You have to use a lot of machine learning, AI. You have to have heuristic approaches. You have to think this through. You have to know how the operator in this case is drone pilot, how his mind works, where would you like to fly. There is a lot of testing to be done. This is like my favorite project. I would put a lot of effort in there. Plus, equally, I would enforce or make the use-based infrastructure development faster, because there is, interestingly, there was even a tender from Finland that asked specifically for use-based, like a ready-made use-based software already, which was really cool. It's like, again, I would accelerate the use-based creation, and then my personal favorite is the drone pilot detection.
Very cool, very cool. Thank you, Märten, for coming in today.
Thanks
To sum up then, I guess all of the cities need to think about this. They really should get the risk assessment done. They should really understand what will be the potential use cases be and how to build their use space around it that can regulate it and make it safe for everyone to use.
And also keep open eyes and look around what others are doing, because it doesn't have to be a competition all the time. It's just take ideas. Let's execute them.
That's true. Thank you again, Märten.
Thank you for asking. Yes.